Howdy, y'all. That's a new greeting we have. Welcome back to another episode of the college basketball weekly AP poll stream we have here in the Bleacher Report app and platforms wherever you're looking. Well, listen, 1 o'clock Eastern time every single Monday, new college basketball poll. You can bet your bottom that I'm going to be here, Ryan Hammer, hosting our show today. We got a new top 25 heading into Feast Week. Feast week is, I feel like it's mostly Thanksgiving, like the few days before, but it kind of starts this Thursday. The Purdue, Texas Tech, who else is playing that? Memphis and Wake Forest Baha Mar tournament is Thursday and Friday, and then you have a bunch of other tournaments starting Friday, Saturday, Sunday into players that are in Maui next week. Nonetheless, we got a new AP poll. Let's run through it like always. We're going to run through all the takeaways and movement in the top 25 and even teams receiving votes. I'll give you my thoughts. I'll give you the reasons why they're moving, and we'll talk about how it bodes for all the teams going forward into next week. We'll start at the top. The jostle back and forth every week for Purdue and Houston. So week one, Purdue starts out as number one, and they get 35 to 16 in the first place votes. Purdue to Houston was 35-16. Week two, Purdue looked a little bit shaky, and it was 18 to 36, 36-18, but Houston was number one by a hair, and now Purdue takes back number one. Yes, I see everybody in the chat. I cannot forget to remind you, stay active in the chat, ask your questions. We'll get to the best questions possible, and stay tuned for some polls as well as we get going to stay interactive here. So Purdue number one, Houston number two. Purdue off that win against Alabama, who's now down to 11. I think that they were number nine. That's correct, 87 to 80 in Tuscaloosa. They looked great. Purdue did a great job taking Alabama out of their game offensively. It was Alabama's least amount of possessions, second least amount of possessions that they've played in a game in the last two seasons, which is awesome. You take Alabama out of their fast-paced game, it gives you a better chance to win. It makes them a little bit uncomfortable. So they slowed the pace down. They did a really good job doing that. They also got TKR back, which is obviously amazing. He's their second All-American, 20-point per game scorer last year. He looks much better than he did last year, rebounding the ball, defending, doing all the dirty work. Like he's almost like grown into this mature, true vet of just being an absolute animal. And it's really unleashed their sets and schemes and lineups that they could do with their two big lineups between Trey Kaufman ran, obviously, and then Oscar Clough, and then throw Daniel Jacobson in there, who was pretty decent in spot moments. But Purdue number one, Houston down to number two. We do have a poll going right now. I see it going. Should Purdue be number one? Absolutely or hell nah? Basically, yes or no. Answer that in there in the chat right there in the poll. I don't know how I feel. Like, I don't think Purdue or Houston should, if you, whoever's all the voters, they shouldn't be changing who they're voting on one and two right now, to me. Purdue and Houston have both shown enough that they're the number one team in the country, and they've also both shown enough that they shouldn't be knocked if they are the number one team in the country. So if you're voting Houston number one last week and the week before, it should be Houston again this week, and then vice versa. If you voted for Purdue at the start of the season, it should be Purdue number one in your poll every single week. I know that's not how the poll voters go, so that's kind of, they just changed by the week. It looks like we got 56-44. It's closer to an even split than I imagine. I mean, Purdue looked good. Listen, like you can't be mad at them being number one. Like it to me, it makes complete sense that they are there. I get it. I understand why they're voting for that. Nonetheless, we won't spend too much time on the top. Purdue and Houston, number one and number two. UConn off of a great win versus BYU, who is now down to number nine. BYU was seven when they played. UConn was already at three. It was an awesome game. UConn now in November makes sense that they should be winning these games. They're intelligent, they're experienced, they're smart, they have continuity on their team from last year. They should be dominating and winning these games in November. Of course, BYU made a really good comeback. I think that's just an ode to BYU's shot making and talent, but UConn is just as elite as you want them to be. Their defense looks very, very good. They are going to play Arizona on Wednesday. That's going to be the big test, the real test for their defense to see if it's for real. And if it is, same thing for Arizona, who's at number four. Which is going to be an awesome game. Number three versus number four, incredible on Wednesday night. It's going to be fantastic and a great test for their defenses. I think Arizona hasn't had the best defense in the last few years, but it's looked very, very good. They're forcing a lot of turnovers out of teams in the first few games, and UConn's defense was bad last year. That was the reason that was holding them back, and that was the reason they were a first weekend exit for the first time in a few years. like they need their defense to be good to get back to national title contention. And so far, it looks that way. It'll definitely be an interesting test that we have from there. Um, Adab says Bama drops 3 spots after losing, but Auburn doesn't move after losing. Well, first off, you got to look at where they were, right? Alabama was at 8, right? And Auburn was at 22, and Alabama plays a team that was number 2, and they lose at home. And then Auburn, who's 22, loses to the number 1 team in the country at the time by 1 in a game that they probably could have and should have won down the stretch. I don't have a problem at all with Auburn not moving. I like moving up and down 1 or 2 spots. I don't think it's really that the end of the world. Like they looked good versus Houston. Keyshawn Hall got hurt down the stretch of the game, and their 24 per game point per game scorer couldn't play in the end, so they couldn't really close that game out. Houston gets that win. I don't really have a problem with that. Alabama down to 11. You want to argue they should be 9, 10. I'm okay with that, but I don't think it's the end of the world really. And they're going to be at players era this week, Alabama. So is Auburn. They ideally won't play each other, but they might play each other if they both end up getting first place to play in the championship there. Or sorry, not this week. It'll be the week after they'll play together at Players Era. But that'll be a very, very, very fun and interesting one. Some other comments I'm seeing: why is Syracuse not ranked from Dag Host? They don't deserve to be ranked yet. They have not played anybody of serious quality yet, and they won't until they go to Vegas and Players Era. So I don't think that Syracuse deserves to be ranked here. I don't know if they were getting any votes at all. I don't see them getting not a single vote. So that kind of, there you go. That kind of tells you testament to the fact that they probably don't deserve to be ranked just yet. Indiana is still getting votes. Indiana up to 27 now, which is awesome. I think Indiana deserves to be the top 25 team. I think over a couple of teams there, but to be in the top 30, I think is all that matters. They've only played that one tough game against Marquette, and we'll see kind of when they play some more real teams. Getting on more with the rest of the rankings, Duke down to 5. I think that's more just because they bumped Arizona up to 4. The votes on that look close, I'd imagine. Yeah, they're really, really close to each other. Duke had a first place vote, and Arizona had 2 first place votes, which is very, very interesting. They did beat Arizona, beat UCLA. Duke obviously won that game against Army. They haven't played a ton of great opponents since their first couple of games, but they play Kansas this week tomorrow night at the Garden Champions Classic. They play number 25 or number 24 Kansas now. That'll be a great game to watch to see if they look as dominant as you want them to be. Number 6 Louisville beat Kentucky, and Kentucky's down to 12. Louisville's backcourt is the best backcourt in the country, like by a country mile to me. People were kind of talking about that before the season. Like, who has the best backcourt? Is it Purdue? Is it Houston? Is it BYU maybe? Is it Alabama? Like, it was always Louisville for the backcourt. It was absolutely amazing versus Kentucky. Michael Brown is as pro of a combo guard as you want as a freshman, as a prospect, as a player in general. They look great. I want to say that they're real title contenders. Of course, their quality is there. The front court and the defense, I just want to see it again and again and again to be sure of it, because it was more of like an offensive shootout and Kentucky just couldn't keep up with them. Although the front court, Sandefur defense did look good. Matt Frank says Louisville dominating UK in a huge jump is a refreshing sight for the fan base. Yeah, it's got to feel good. That's got to feel real good if you're a Louisville fan. It's, you guys have been through the depths of horrors in the last few years. Last year was better and good. This is what you want to see. Like, if the season goes to crap at some point, you can always have this win and have this point of the year, and it feels good. But the team is good. Team is legit. Pat Kelsey's an awesome coach, so I wouldn't be too worried about that at all. Michigan down to 7 is very, very, very intriguing. I thought they would have taken a little bit more of a hit. They were at 6 last week. They had 1121 on the votes, and now they're at 7 and only at 1103. So not much change. Only a few voters kind of saw that. They barely beat Wake Forest, and they barely won at TCU, sorry, TCU, not a good team. The turnover problem for Michigan is a real issue. They're going to play MTSU, and then they're going to go to Players Era to play San Diego State, and I forget who the other team is there for that one, but the turnover concern is more glaring than it was last year. They did turn the ball over a lot in the beginning of last season also, and then they made they refined it and it got a little bit better. but it still ended up being their downfall. Michigan last year, with Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden playing through their bigs, almost lost to UC San Diego in the first round because of their turnovers. They're playing through the bigs a lot this year, and Elliot Cadeau, who has a turnover issue himself, the turnovers are gonna kill them. Like, will they improve it for sure? I think Yaxel has to be a lot better, and they got to get more out of him. He looks like a little step behind at least, but I trust Dusty May to get it figured out. Nonetheless, I did think that they would drop a little more past 7. Doc Branson says that Zona is a top 2 team. Yeah, I mean, back to Arizona, like you could argue that they could be a top 2 team because obviously their win quality is incredible, and realistically, like they have the best resume in the country, I guess, on paper right now, or one of the top 2 resumes in the country. Uh, let's see how it goes on Wednesday at UConn. They're not even playing in XL. They're playing in Gamble, the tiny arena on UConn's campus, I think. So it'll be really interesting, tough environment, great game, 3 versus 4. Whoever wins that, like I don't know if the voters might bump them up to 1 or 2 because they're playing each other, but again, they might stick at 3, whoever wins that. Nonetheless, I wouldn't be too worried. If it's a great game, they both look good, then you know they're both elite, then you got a pretty solid top 4 or 5 teams in the entire country. Illinois, big riser up to number 8. I do want to talk about them because they're one of my big risers also. They were 14 last week in the AP poll. So they're probably the biggest riser in this poll. They beat Texas Tech at home. They looked really good doing it. It was a great game. Texas Tech fought hard. Texas Tech is an awesome team. They did it without Tomislav Ivicic, who's arguably their best player, or at least one of their best players, their starting 5. And they did it without Mihailo Petrovic, who is one of their Euro guard playmakers who's good. This team is legit. I had questions about their defense. I had questions coming into the year. I don't really have as many questions, especially when they're going to be fully healthy. Colin Boswell is an awesome defender. Their defense isn't like elite, but I think with a fully healthy team, it's good enough to be a national title contender. The depth of offensive options they have in craft and playmaking is incredible. Andrei Stojakovic was amazing in that game. He didn't take a single 3, still had like a 20-something piece. He played great defense on Christian Anderson, Texas Tech point guard in that game, especially like, right from the jump. His length was definitely an issue for him, getting Christian Anderson going. That was huge for Illinois. And then you go to David Mirkovic, who after this game had a 2020 game. Kylan Boswell, who's shooting the lights out. Ben Hummerkaus, Tomislav, Big Z, Ivicic. Like, Illinois is a real national title contender. I firmly believe that. I still want to see like they're going to play Alabama this week. That's a crazy game, and how good is their defense actually? This is where you find out when you play against Alabama. So I'm very interested to see how that game goes, to see if Illinois is for sure the real deal. Hayden, how did North Carolina not rise from 18? They didn't really play anybody or do anything to show they did deserve to rise. They beat Radford and NC Central. In my opinion, there's no reason that North Carolina should be rising. So I think it's a pretty obvious answer. They've only beaten Kansas so far, who is at 24 right now, was at 25 last week, I think. So I don't think that's really much of a concern at all there. Should North Carolina be higher? Put them higher, put them lower. Are they just right at number 18? It looks like early signs say just right. My vote would be just right at 18. Like I said, like I don't think it's really a massive concern at all. Until they play those better opponents and kind of prove to you that they do deserve to be up higher. So we'll see how that goes. If Kansas wins this week, that might help them. If Kansas beats Duke on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, that might help them a lot. Another team I want to talk about, 13, Gonzaga on the rise. They look like they're one of the best teams in the country to me right now. It's hard to not say that. Gonzaga was number 19 last week. There we go. Wow. From 19 up to 13 from last week, Gonzaga looks dangerous and terrifying and scary. They beat Oklahoma very handily, and then they manhandled Creighton when Creighton was ranked last week, number 23. 90 to 63. Their depth is incredible. They have all these older dudes who are just physical and strong and smart. They have a plethora of playmakers that make it so tough to game plan against them. Graham Ike, Braden Huff, they're 2 bigs that were there last year. They're still here this year. They have Braden Smith from Colgate, different Braden Smith. They have Ty and Grant Foster, who obviously everybody knows from GCU, who's an awesome wing scorer. They got Jalen Warley, who's also had an injury. FSU, Virginia, now he finds his way to Gonzaga. Mario Saint-Supri, Super Mario. If you haven't seen him play, he might be their best guard and playmaker by the end of the season for Gonzaga, and he's the only guy under 21 that gets into the rotation. Spanish guard, youngest Spanish national team player since Ricky Rubio in 2009, I think that was. So he's an awesome player. They're really, really good. Their defense is physical and much stronger and much more consistent than it has been in the last few years. So this is a different type of a Gonzaga team, in my opinion. And I think that honestly, 13 doesn't even do them justice. They get to play, they just beat ASU also. I think that's Southern Utah they're going to play. And then they go to Players Era, where they play Alabama and Maryland, and then a third game of TBD, basically. That Alabama game is going to be awesome on Monday night. I think that is 11:24. Probably my favorite game in the first 2 days of Players Era. Cam asked thoughts on Texas Tech down to 15. I love Texas Tech. I think we've said that on stream here, and I've said that everywhere that they're one of my favorite teams in the country. I wouldn't be worried about them after the Illinois loss. They didn't have their center, Luke Bamboye, and this is a team that's not deep. That was the main concern with them coming into the year, and it still is. If they don't have a JT Toppin, Lawan Watts, Christian Anderson, Luke Bamboye, Petty, like it's going to be harder for them to win games against good teams for sure. They played up to size well. JT Toppin stepped up, National Player of the Year type of performance. He had like a 35, 36 piece against Illinois. They're awesome. They have all the makings of a Final Four team, dark horse national title contender. The depth is concerning for sure. Obviously, they weren't fully healthy for this game, but now there was Illinois. They still fought back. They still almost won this game. I wouldn't be too worried about them. I still have the same takeaways and the same kind of and the same feelings and opinions on them. THJR says no Ohio State. Dang, yeah, Ohio State hasn't beaten enough good quality teams. Notre Dame win by a hair, based off with that Chris Tilley bucket, scoop and score bucket at the end of the game. That was not enough for me at least. With for them to put them in here alone. Like NC State last week, I don't think was in the top 25, but they're in there now. NC State deserves to be there. Wisconsin deserves to be there. You can't drop Auburn out for losing to Houston by one in a really, really tough, close game. Like the teams that are in there deserve to be there above Ohio State, in my opinion. So that's kind of is what it is. Doc Branson, 83. Again, please talk about Iowa State and that defense. Iowa State's amazing. Maybe the most underrated team in the country, too. Number 16 right now they're at. 3-0. They just beat the pants off Miss State. They're going to play against St. John's and Creighton at Players Era. Not this week, a week from today and a week from tomorrow, which will be awesome tests. Their defense looks great. Their offense looks good too. Taman Lipsey's an absolute monster. I didn't think they'd have the offensive capability and firepower like they did last year, losing Keyshawn Gilbert, Curtis Jones. So far, they look like they're kind of backfilling and playing differently and just adjusting who they're playing through with Milan and Josh Jefferson and Taman and a couple other guys. So I like Iowa State a lot. They're not really getting a lot of love right now because they haven't had that marquee game, but Players Era is a chance for them to prove themselves, and I think that they definitely will. I like that. Coach Couch, thoughts on the Gators? I like Florida. We talked about them last week after their initial loss. The guard play is concerning to a level of like they want to win the national championship, but they looked good last night as a team versus Miami. Herb Klobuchar off the bench was huge because Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland very inefficient. They didn't look great, but as long as someone in the guard room in the backcourt is going to step up, I'm not worried that Florida can contend in the SEC and be a Final Four type team again. I don't think they're this ever going to be a number one team in the country this season and national title team like that, but I think that Thomas Houck has realized he has to step up. He has to be the alpha, and that kind of is what it is. They just inched out a game versus FSU. I said they beat Miami. They're going to play Merrimack and TCU going forward. So they got a couple of easy games, but I think after that TCU one will be another neutral site game as well. Some of the other teams that are receiving votes that are just on the outside, San Diego State, Indiana, Vanderbilt is a team that people are high on right now. KenPom Efficiency has them, I think, at like 12 or something like that. I'm pretty sure. I just want to cross-reference that real quick because it is a crazy. I think they're at 12. But Vanderbilt looks really good, especially offensively. Haven't played great teams yet. We talked about Ohio State. USC and Georgetown are two that I want to mention real fast. USC has looked very, very good in my opinion, and they're very underrated. They're definitely a team to watch out for. I think that you can make a case for them in the top 26, 27, 28, top 30. And Georgetown, people are asking, are they for real? They've beaten Maryland now, obviously, and they beat Clemson. I don't think those are two great teams, but they looked relatively good doing it. Their backcourt looks decent. Vincent Iwuchukwu in the front court has looked really good. So is Georgetown legit? It depends on your definition of legit, in my opinion. I saw someone in the comments ask that before. I don't know how good their ceiling is, how good they are, but Georgetown is solid. I wouldn't put it past them to be the third best team in the Big East because the Big East looks awful right now. King Kurt NC says, let's talk about NC State. Let's talk about them. Have been blowing the pants off of a lot of really bad teams so far, but that's their job right now. That's their job to beat bad teams when they're on the schedule, and they beat them handily, and they're doing that. Efficiencies look good. KenPom numbers, analytics, everything looks good. They're playing VCU at home tonight. That's a Will Wade homecoming game. Used to be a VCU guy. Obviously now through the ringer of LSU, McNeese, now NC State. I love NC State. I think that they're a legit top 20 team in the country. This is a good chance to prove it. They play VCU tonight at home, and I think that is going to be like VCU is good. They're a very good A10 mid-major team. They're a contender. VCU could be a dangerous tournament team. And in March, this is one of those games where say North Carolina State wins by 10, 15 tonight, whatever. They handle business. This could be one of those games in March where VCU is an 11 seed or even like a 10 seed because they played so well in conference, and you look back and go, wow, NC State handled them pretty well. Maybe you like NC State. Like this could be one of those games. VCU is really good. I like NC State a lot. They're balanced. They're deep. Darian Williams looks great. Paul McNeil is amazing shooter. His breakout is fully here. So I like NC State. VCU tonight, then Seton Hall in Maui, and then whoever they get else in that bracket after that. Mason Miller says, who will be the next team to sneak into the top 25, do you think? Based on schedules or without looking at schedules, I guess to consider, San Diego State's an obvious one. They are going to be at Players Era again, not this week, but it'll be the week after that. So San Diego State would be my obvious choice. Indiana, we got the poll running. You guys can answer the same question. Who's going to be the next team to crack a top 25? I think these four options are good. Oregon, Vandy, Indiana, San Diego State. They're all undefeated as of right now, I believe. Indiana's a good one, especially offensively. Like they're so good. And if they play anybody that is, if they have any good games, I think they have do you have a good game this week, Indiana? Indiana, let's see. Indiana, number 22 on KenPom right now. They play against Lindenwood and K-State in the next week. So not ideal games to go up into the top 25 for a week from today. But after Feast Week, they play K-State, and they're at a neutral site there, I think. That's a chance for them to crack in. They really don't have great out-of-conference games until December 6th. They play Louisville in a neutral site. So that will be a very, very interesting one. Indiana, for sure, is probably going to be undefeated the next week when we're doing this, and the week after that when we're doing this. So realistically, as long as someone ahead of them loses, and Indiana will probably be a top 25 team. I think that's a pretty good take on that, as the poll said so. And San Diego State will go to Players Era. They're going to have to look good there to crack in because they have Troy this week, and then Michigan and Oregon, and a third opponent at Players Era. So it'll be very, very interesting to see who they get there. Youthful Soul, UCLA dropped. Yeah, UCLA dropped after the loss to Arizona, but I don't think it was by that much. Last week they were 15. They dropped to 19. It's a case of Iowa State, Michigan State, North Carolina all played easy games, all took care of business. It's tough because, like, do you drop UCLA by losing in a really tight game against a really good Arizona team, top 4 and 5 in the country the last 2 weeks? Like, that's kind of tough. I think that anywhere from 15 to 20 is a fair spot for UCLA. I don't think you should nitpick that much. It's really not the end of the world. Looking at the votes, at least, they were pretty close. They were actually really close to being 20 because Tennessee hasn't been playing anybody and they haven't lost any games either. So take it what you will for UCLA. They looked pretty decent. They defended up well. The shooting got a little better, but I don't know how consistent it is. Donovan Dent didn't play great. So your best player not playing well, turning the ball over, not shooting well. I think that's positive takeaway for UCLA, as positive as you're going to get in a loss in that game against Arizona. So Ruby Win, is the Big East really this week this year? Dude, the Big East has been so bad. It's been so bad. Marquette looks awful. Their team has gotten worse and worse every year of the last few seasons. Creighton got mollywopped by Gonzaga. Maybe that's just Gonzaga being great. I think there's a chance that at Players Era, if Creighton can look decent and make some noise, win a game or two, that you might be like, okay, that was just Gonzaga being great, and Creighton maybe isn't all that bad. But Creighton really did not look the part there. Providence is 2-2 now. They've lost to Colorado after that Virginia Tech loss also, which is not great. Like, the Big East is in trouble for sure. So that just kind of is what it is. Thrasher asking about BYU. We got to talk BYU, still top 10. That UConn game was awesome. Yes, BYU at 9. Love that the voters have them there. I actually took I almost feel better about UConn or BYU. I feel better about BYU now after the game. After losing to UConn. Think about this, ready? They lose their starting center. He played 8 minutes, Kebaketa, in that game. They lose their center. They're playing against a team with a good center, Terrace Reed, who did very well in that game after he left. They lose their center. They're down by damn near 20. The game looks out of reach. They're basically on the road in Boston, which is literally UConn territory. Then they turn on the Jets and they find their rhythm, and the offensive talent prevailed, like to a point where they had a chance to tie the game up to go to overtime, and Rob Wright, of all players, slips and turns the ball over. Like that just kind of is what it is. Like he's Rob Wright. I want the ball in his hands in those situations. If that happens one time, every like he has that situation 10 times, he turns the ball over one time, and that's just how it is. AJ DeBanza look amazing down the stretch. Their offense looked great. Their defense, their press, their defense, their intensity looked much better down the stretch in a hostile environment. Like my point is, if they can face adversity like that in November and find their rhythm in a situation like that, I'm very excited to see what it looks like in January and then in February and then in March. Like they're a team right now that is inexperienced. They haven't fully meshed well, and there are a lot of new faces and young talent. If they look like this when they find their rhythm in a really tough situation against a team like UConn who's experienced in November, they're going to be even better every single month of the year, and they're going to be playing their best ball in March. Last one I'll get to here, Polish Hammer. Ken Palm loves Vandy. He has about 12 thoughts. Yeah. Their offense looks great. They haven't played great teams yet. That's my only concern with Vanderbilt, realistically. They are getting votes here. They are 28th in terms of poll votes here. They've played Lipscomb, UCF, Pine Bluff, and Eastern Kentucky. Like, there's not much we can get out of that. Then they're going to play Texas Southern, Western Kentucky, SMU, Central Arkansas. Memphis hasn't looked good. Wake Forest, I don't know if they're good. New Haven is not good. South Carolina to start SEC play. Like, there's a chance that Vandy is undefeated going into, I don't even like into the new year and after the new year. So Vanderbilt, I need to see them. Like the Memphis game will tell us a lot. SMU is not terrible, and Wake Forest games. If they take care of business in those games, like we still might not know for sure because the schedule is pretty easy, but nonetheless, they could be a team that rises up through the ranks for sure. They can definitely play. I see all in the comments. Vandy is nice. We'll see how that kind of bodes versus the next few teams that we got. So that's all we got for this week. Appreciate y'all for being here as always. Tap in every Monday at 1 p.m. when the AP poll drops to go over all the changes and updates in the games this past week and the week coming up. Feast week starts Thursday, like I said. Baja Mar Hoops in the ballroom, in the hotel ballroom. Texas Tech, Purdue, Memphis, and Wake Forest. That'll be a fun one. And then we're into the real goods of Feast week over the weekend and into next week. So appreciate y'all for being here. Enjoy the week of games. Peace.